We'll go ahead and get started real quick. We'll welcome everybody here tonight. Appreciate y'all coming out. This is kind of how we're going to get information out in our community about the bond election. So, just want to kind of tell everybody that at Iola we're doing some really good things. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Appreciate y'all coming out because this is going to be like a fact-finding meeting. And so, like me, I can only give you facts. I can't give you opinions. So, I want to qualify that so you can ask me questions. There may be something that I can't answer. If we do, I'm going to refer to Mr. Rob Sidebottom. He's with Gallagher, and they are our construction agent. And so they work for the school over the construction project. So he's going to tag in when something needs a little bit more explanation. He's going to tag in. All right, so our agenda tonight, this is kind of our future. You know, we always like to say it's a great day to be a bulldog. Everybody kind of has that slogan, but we do some really good things up here. We're going to update some of the things that are happening in the district, and then we'll get to the bond election. All right. So when we started this project, when I came on, it was in August. And so there were some things that were discussed. We did a facility study, and we have some good things going on here, like our basketball teams, our girls basketball team this year made the playoffs, won a game, got the second round, lost by a couple of points. As y'all know, we are a volleyball school. We hang our hat on that. That's what we do. I mean, our reputation around the state is volleyball. So those are good things. Mr. Santos is here. He's with our music program. We're going to try to expand his band hall because his numbers are growing. And so we really like to see the fine arts come in. I know we're athletics, but the fine arts, they have a certain niche for kids, and we want to cater to those kids. Okay, so the committee, we met at least 3 times that I know of. We talked about things that basically are wearing down. We've had a really cheap interest rate, and some of our buildings haven't been maintained like they should have been. Just age gets them. So we all met, we did a facility study, and here's the things that came up with out of the committee. We want to renovate the current administration building. That's the building I'm in. They want to gut it. Most of it. Some of it is very acceptable. It's good classroom. But we're going to take the boardroom out, my office is out, and we're going to put classrooms in there. So that's one thing. So we're going to pick up an extra 3 or 4 classrooms just by doing that. And we're going to move the administration building over to, I'm going to call it the old Neville House. Okay? Because that's, when I was here, that's who lived there. So we're going to, that house is big, it's got some really nice rooms in it, and so we're going to move all the administrative offices across the road. So that gives us, that frees that up. Then we're going to add on the, I'm going to call it the west end, behind my office, we're going to add 3 other additional classrooms. One of them is going to be a dedicated music room, so that it's a little bit more soundproof, because one of the issues that we run into is we have music in that building on the end. Well, pre-K has nap time, and so that blocks us out from playing music. So that's why we want a dedicated music room that's insulated and it's built for music. So that's going to be on the end. The next thing is the construction of a multi-purpose gym. And when we say multi-purpose, here are the things that we want to go on in that gym. You know, of course we're going to do athletics. We're going to do your basketball and your volleyball, those kind of things. But we are looking at putting a stage on one end. Now what the stage will do for us is really going to help us. The stage will give us a place to have black plays. We'll be able to have graduation. And we can have music concerts in there. And so if we have a music concert in there, we can put chairs on the floor. It's like a huge auditorium. And I know a couple of years ago at graduation, it was really, really stormy. Well, if we have it inside, we never have to worry about the weather outside. Everybody can be kind of cool. So that's when we say multi-purpose, we mean more than just athletics. All right, so there's some modifications that we have to do. And I'm going to refer to these. If y'all look at the site plan, we'll pull that up in a minute. I'm going to refer to these in a couple of different manners because over the years they've changed. We have an old cafeteria in the middle of our campus. Now, when I was in school, it was the old cafeteria. It's a girls' weight room now. It used to be a computer lab. That building's going to come out because we have some drainage issues and we need to get water from the middle of our campus off and out into the ditches. So that thing kind of blocks up the space. All right, Mr. Callahan's building, transportation building, used to be an old ag shop. We are looking to build him a building across the road next to maintenance. So we can put them over there. We want to make it gated where the buses can drive in. They're locked behind the gate. Because here's what we're fixing to experience. As gas prices go up, our buses get empty. Okay? Because we don't have them locked. People go over and they siphon diesel out of our buses all the time. So we'll be able to take them, put them in there, lock them in. We'll have a modernized shop with really nice equipment for Mr. Callahan to do his work. So now that's not in the bond building that. We're going to do that out of fund balance. But when we do that, we're going to tear that building down and make that a lot of parking. All right. Now, I'm going to address this issue right now. We have talked about demoing the old gym. That's not going to be in the bond fund. No bond funds will be used to do that. That's going to be a topic of conversation at a later date. Okay? So, if we tear that down, that'll be more of a board decision, and you can have input if you want to on that subject when that comes up. Now, bottom one is, so when the committee come back, we looked at all the things that the committee wanted to do. When we put it out to the society bottom, and you figure it in interest, the number came back at 24 million. So that's how we got to that number. We looked at the things that we, I say wanted, that's what your meeting wanted. And so that's how we got to the 24 million. We just didn't pull that out of our head. You know, we took, what's the renovation going to cost, what's the demo going to cost, what's the gym going to cost, classroom. So their job is, they give us the estimates. Estimates come back at 24 million. And that's finished product. And we don't want to ever run out of money before we finish. That's the worst thing in the world that we can do. And that's happened to some school districts. So we think that we have a good calculation.
Can I expand on that?
Yes, sir.
So people are probably wondering who's this Yahoo standing up at the front while Mr. Dyer is talking. So I am not what you would consider a general contractor. So the company I work for is Gallagher Construction. We manage the building of schools. We're not a GC. The way it works in our industry is when something large capital project happens at a school, by law, there have to be engineers and architects hired who will design the project to get the waters and the ditches, to design the building that's the proper size and everything for your kiddos. Excuse me. That has to go through because of public laws about purchasing. That has to be done by an architect or an engineer. My job then is if we're involved in the building of those projects, we create bid specs and everything gets put out for public bid. We don't have a group of contractors sitting and waiting that we bring to Iola. Everything is public bid, and hopefully local contractors who can accommodate the work will respond and build the project. That is strictly the board's decision. We don't determine who those contractors are. We write the proper bid specs so that people can respond, and the board inevitably gets to make that decision. We will make some recommendations. Some folks with whom we've worked in the past are not so good. We'll make sure the board knows about that. Some are good. The board can make the decision then based on the lowest and best value of those bids that come back. So, the reason I wanted to address the 24 million, how did I come up with 24? It's a guess. So the way that Austin requires school construction projects to happen is their financing system, which Mr. Dyer is going to talk more about, requires that big capital projects have to be voted on by the public. Before that vote can happen, it has to be put on the bond, on the ballot, and in order to be put on the ballot, we have to have a number. So there's your 24, right? Unfortunately, anybody here ever built a house? Do you know how much it costs to build that house just by walking up to a general contractor and saying, Mr. or Mrs. General Contractor, I need you to build me a 3-bedroom house. What's it going to cost? They can't answer because they don't know if you want to have 2 living rooms, if it's 2 masters, if it's going to have a 3-car garage, if it's on a hill and there's lots of drainage issues. The architect has to design it before they can tell you what they think it's going to cost. And the district is not going to hire an architect and ask them to design a building until the community says, yes, we agree we need to build a building. So if we haven't designed anything, we don't know how much it's going to cost. So what my job was, when the committee, the board, and Mr. Dyer charged me with how much are we going to need to accomplish this scope that the committee identified, we went and tried to figure out what we're paying right now for gyms that we're building, what we're paying right now for expansions of buildings. And it's not just that. If anybody's seen the steel market, the construction materials market over the last year, by the time the architect designs it, y'all won't vote till May. When May comes and goes, it might take a year for an architect or 6 to 12 months to design a gym. So we're not even going to be starting to break ground on a gym for a year, so we have to figure out what it might cost next year. So the board and administration of this district said what we're not going to do is put a number up there and then have to go back to the public a year from now and say that it ain't enough to finish the project. So that 24 million, if it were voter approved, ends up in the district's bank account, not mine. It's not my money. It stays right here with the school. They write the checks to finish the project. I make sure that those local contractors, or from wherever they come, build the project that was promised to y'all. So that number was not a bid of me trying to buy a vote, I promise. Just wanted to explain it.
All right. You hit the next one.
Yes, sir. Maybe.
All right. So we're going to kind of go through this real briefly. This is the most complicated part of the school business. All right. So we have two different funding sources that we do. We have an M&O, and that's what the term we use. That's our maintenance and operations side. That's how we pay our everyday, daily stuff. Okay, so when we buy copy paper, we pay our phone bill, our light bill, it comes out of maintenance and operation. The state makes us section out because we as a district, we don't have $24 million sitting in a bank account to go out and be able to build this stuff. So what we have to do is we have to sell bonds, and that's our interest and sinking. That's what the state calls it, so we just call it INS. So when we sell these bonds, what we do is we put them out on the market, they send them out. That's how we get our money to build. And then over 30 years, we repay that just like a car note or anything else that you have in your family. So that's what the state makes us do. And so that's the law. There's a lot of laws that come into play here. We have lawyers that do the bond counsels. In other words, when we go to put it out, the school doesn't sell the bonds. We go to bond people to sell the bonds to people who are buying bonds. If that makes sense. So, school, I'm an educator. Okay? I'm not a construction guy. I'm not a bond guy. I do education. So we hire people who are construction guys. We hire people who are bond guys. So that protects us. We want those guys to do what they do. We want to hire those guys. All right. What we got here? All right. So in May the 7th, we're going to come up here in just a minute. That's some of the dates. That's when the bond will go out to the voters. Now, we cannot sell bonds until it is voter approved. That is the law. So in May, which will be our election, it'll go out. We hope that everybody sitting in the room, they vote. You vote your conscience, how you want to vote, and we let the chips fall where they fall. Okay, so that's kind of what I was talking about. Your daily expenses on your M&O, and then your annual stuff. I kind of went ahead because I knew that was coming in.
And about, just FYI, the state of Texas is very conscious about people's property taxes going up, because we all pay property tax more every year. So the state dictates that M&O operating budget for the district. The districts and local voters have no control over the state's operating funds. And the operating funds, about 80%, I haven't studied y'all's finances, but about 80% of what the state gives the school to operate on a day-to-day basis gets eaten up by salaries. And that may seem like a lot. I was at one of these the other day where somebody in the audience took the school's budget and divided it out by the number of employees in the district, and it's not that much. But about 80% goes to staff salaries, which obviously doesn't leave enough out then to go build a gym or even an addition like they were talking about. That part, the state, which I appreciate about them, they said if a district is going to build a building or do a large capital project, they want the voters to have the say in that, not the state and not the board. So you all get to decide.
Okay, so we've kind of gone through this a little bit. want to make sure that we talk about everything on there, the elementary classrooms. Okay, so here's our site plan. So the number one up here, that's extending of my building, I'm gonna call it west, it's towards 244. We're gonna put 3 classrooms, now there's a water well in there, so now, understand, when we put these boxes, these are not exact plans, okay? These are just rough guess of where we're putting them, so don't think that this is exactly where it's gonna be, because if you pull the map up and we do the architect, they're gonna adjust it to wherever they need it, where we get it configured. But the music room would be at the top, I guess where the tree's at, and then underneath would be the other 2 classrooms. So possibly that's where we're gonna pick up about 6 classrooms additional. So when we do that, and we move our 6th grade, which is planned to our junior high, and pick up 2 extra classrooms inside this building, the elementary should be good for 15 years on classroom space.
One of the things that the committee insisted upon during the meetings was apparently y'all have some pickup and drop-off congestion. Is that possible? So they insisted that if you all, or if the community determines that a bond is appropriate and it's moved forward, the committee said we're not making that recommendation without doing some sort of a pickup drop-off easement here to try to get some folks off of this road on the side. So that, of course, the architect will not go in designing something like that until you all say you want him to, but I wanted to make sure we didn't forget that mention.
Okay, so that would give us 3 drop-off and pick-up access points. So we'd have 1 on 39, 1 on 244, and 1 on Fort Worth Street.
What grades are going to be in that building?
Well, that's going to be determined by the principal. But right now, I think they said that they wanted to put the upper elementaries in there. But we already have pre-K in there. So I don't know. I'll have to get with Mr. Juski and figure out what their plans are. All right. Okay, so this is a proposed site for the gymnasium, which is kind of right there behind the field house, sat just below the baseball, softball field. Now, what really makes it nice to have is, if we take out Mr. Callahan's building at the top and make that into a parking lot, we're going to move all these buses, so we already have 2 ready-made parking lots for the gym, which we would also come in the backside of 244 between the baseball field, over by y'all's house, basically, and to put some more parking in there. So we have, basically, we could like triple our parking. I don't know if y'all been to a game lately, but we have a lot of fans. Iola travels well, okay? They fill that parking lot up over there, parked out on the street, and that's causing some issues because you can't see. 39 people are going 75, 80 miles an hour, even though they're not supposed to. They do. And so we're lucky we haven't had wrecks out there. But as y'all know, for safety for our kids, we shut off one of those exits out on the 39. I mean, yes, on 39. But you actually have to go to Bulldog Lane to get out. So we're hoping that we're trying to do some safety stuff within this, and that's kind of driving a lot of the decisions, let's say that. Okay, so now the band hall. We didn't talk about this earlier, but what we're looking at is there's some room between the band hall and the ag shop. It's just a vacant spot. We want to tear the end of that music room off and extend it down to that sidewalk, which is going to pick up about 20 feet length.
About 1,000 square feet.
Yeah, we'll pick up an extra 1,000 square feet, which is about a third increase in the music room, not the whole building, but in the music room. So that's one thing that we're very excited about. I know Mr. Santos was excited when his name got brought up in this, and we're glad he's here today.
And if you want to talk about the playground, I'll go back to this.
Okay. The playground is an issue. We're on the outside of our buildings. We had 2 lockdowns. So in this situation, we're in a lockdown, we've got kids outside. We want to move our kids to the interior of our campus. That's where the discussion about the old gym is going to come in. We would love to be able to put a brand new playground right in the building right here, be the backside of the old gym, and have a parking lot access coming through there for safety. So if we have a fire, we can get fire trucks into the center of the campus. Now, like I said, that demolition of that old gym is not in this bond, but that is something that we're looking at. It would open us up some room in there. It would create a little bit of better drainage. There's a lot of advantages, and I love that old gym. I played in it. It served its purpose, in my opinion. It's a 1937 building. It's a great gym, but it's seen a few days. All right. All right. So, here's why you're here. What's it going to cost me? It's going to be for $24 million. It will be an increase of 17 cents on the taxes. Now, if you got a flyer, if you look at that flyer on the right-hand side of the column, there's some bar graphs. So if you have a $100,000 home, you have a $200,000 home, if you have a $300,000 home, that will give you a rough ballpark of what it's going to cost you on taxes. Now, we're going to have a website up and running. You will actually be able to go and put the value of your home in, and it will tell you what the increase of that bond is going to cost you individually. All right? Now, we'll throw this out there. The legislature is going to up the homestead exemption. Everybody got a homestead exemption? You don't get one. Okay. It's $25,000 now. It's fixing to go to $40,000. So you need to keep that in mind because most of you, there's probably not going to be a whole lot of change in the taxes. It'll probably be a break even. So that's one thing we need to just keep in mind. Okay. All right. So the example number 2, I'll let you read that yourself.
It's actually wrong.
Okay. Don't read number 2.
Yeah, it's on your flyer. I'm sorry, my assistant helped us put this together.
So go by the flyer.
The flyer, it's $4.63 a month, not $8.50. But I don't know where my assistant did the math, sorry.
Not that I don't good.
That is not correct.
All right. So now historical. This is our tax rate, guys. We have been very low for a long time. I mean, I'm just going to tell you, y'all get a deal. I live in Bryan, actually. My taxes are way higher than y'all's. If you're in College Station, that's even worse. So what this would do, really, if you look at the next one, I think it's going to show us. Okay, so here's our neighbors, and as you can tell, we're the cheapest on the board. Now, 17-cent increase, and that's going to move us up. All right, so we'll kind of be in the middle of the road here. I think Anderson is $1.22. I think Anderson $1.22, something like that. So we're gonna be right there with Anderson. I always like to look at our neighbors. You know, what are they charging? And so right now we're running $1.04. That's the best deal going. All right, next one. Okay, if you're 65 and older, you got the best deal ever. Your taxes don't move. If you're under 65, it's going to affect you. So, if you have people that you know that are 65, please inform them that their taxes are not going up. I don't want to panic anybody that's on a fixed income.
That's if they're 65 and they live in a home they own and they have the homestead exemption. The county has frozen the dollar amount they pay in taxes for the school. And if they need to find out whether they currently have that freeze, they can just call the CAD, and the CAD will be able to tell them they have it or they don't have it. And if not, they'll be able to help them fill out the form and submit it. It's super easy.
There's a guy down there named Shannon Sanders. Call him often. They'll appreciate that.
This is also the same for disabled vets.
All right. So, just going to let y'all read these two statements. Get ready to kind of wrap this up. We know there's a possibility it won't pass. We get that. So, if it doesn't pass, you know, we're still going to educate the kids. We're going to open our doors, welcome them in, and we're going to give them the best education that Iowa can give them. Okay? So, just want you to vote your conscience. We just want you to get out and vote. Just, if you see people, encourage them to vote. The more people that vote, the better the voice is. And here are the days. So, make sure you get registered to vote. If you didn't vote today, you should have. Today was the primaries. Early voting is May 25th through the 3rd, and election day is May the 7th. That's a Saturday. Polls open at 7 to 7, if I'm not mistaken. And they'll be posted in Grimes County that particular night.
There is when the website becomes live, it'll be on the school's website too, but there's a QR code. You be able to scan that, and it'll tell you where you can vote, how to register to vote. It'll have frequently asked questions. All the information will be on the website.
Okay, first question, who's got one? All right, Mr. Burke.
How much of the, I'm hearing that if we don't vote this through, we don't spend money that the solar panel has supposedly put in this year, we lose.
Okay, so I want to clear a couple of things up, because the newspaper reporter called me yesterday, and they got it all wrong. They thought we owned the solar farm. I'm trying to tell the newspaper, we don't own that. Okay, so there's a peak value on the solar farm, just like your car depreciating. It starts up here, but after year one, it starts tapering off really, really quickly on this stuff. So if we pass it, we're going to be able to tax them at their highest peak. Now, we're not going just after the solar farm. I mean, everybody's got to contribute to this pot. So please don't think that the solar farm is paying for any of this. I mean, they're paying their share, but we as taxpayers, we pay our fair share too. Anything with that in?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So in order to come to the district, the county and the district had to give the solar company, the energy company, a tax abatement. So what that means, do you remember the total value of it?
160 on the first one.
So the solar farm that's coming in is worth $160 million. They would not come in if there was no abatement given to them by the district and the county. That abatement means they're going to cap at $20 million of value on that M&O side, on that side that pays the salaries. Otherwise, it would not be profitable for the solar farm to come and it wouldn't happen, right? However, it is against the law at the Texas legislature to give them an abatement on the bond side that is controlled by the local voters. That's against the law. So the solar farm has done their due diligence and done their business model, assuming, like most communities do, that y'all are going to go after them on that INS side because they're not protected. So I don't remember what that number is, but it might be 7 figures. There's 7 figures of this bond being repaid in the millions somewhere. We can get that. We'll make sure that is on the website. But they have planned that you all will call a bond, and they have put that into their profit and loss statement. If you don't, they get to keep that as additional profit because they're planning on paying for part of the bond when that solar farm is done. We'll get the exact number. Shame on us, I should have had that here today. But that was the whole reason that the district started reaching out to figure out if this solar farm's coming, what choices does our community have at the time about that type of money. So that's what spurred the whole conversation.
Okay, so let me add one more thing to that. Because they're an energy company, they qualify for this abatement. Okay, so wind farms and solar panels, they get the same kind of, I'm going to call it a tax break. They get an abatement. And so if you don't give them the abatement through the school, then they don't come. So, some money's better than no money.
Back to the question, did we just lose it for this year? How many years do we lose it?
So that I assume that your abatement is 10 to 15 years. 15 year?
15, I believe.
15-year agreement. But think about these solar companies. You got 2 parts. You got the land and you got the panels, right? The land is what the land is. And then the other value that comes from these solar companies is a combination of what the equipment's worth and what the electricity they generate is worth. So year one, when you buy a car, before you drive it off the lot, which is year one in this scenario, that car or truck's worth a lot of money, right? When you drive it off the lot, it goes like this, and year 2, 3, 4, 5, the value of that car when you go to trade it in 5 years from now is 20% of what it was when we drove it off the lot. The same thing happens with those solar panels. So in order for this community to realize the most amount of money from that solar company, they would have to be taxed before they drive that thing off the lot, or right when they come online to produce electricity. The second year you're going to lose, if you decided to wait 1 year, you would lose probably 20+% of that value at the same tax rate. And then by the end of year 10, those solar panels will probably have fully depreciated, and instead of being worth 160, it's probably going to be worth somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 million dollars. So to answer your question, if you all want them to pay, this first year is usually important.
Well, what I'm saying is, do we lose it for how many years? Say we go to bond that way,
Okay, so then if we come back in November, if we come back in November and do another bond, so we're, basically we have missed the first year. So by the time we try to get the bond up, or let's just say it doesn't come back in November, we do it in May, well, now we've missed 2 years. So so you're losing 20, 15% each year?
so you'll lose it until you have another bond.
That's correct.
Correct, and even when you call another bond, you will never be able to go back and get the money you missed. It's gone for good.
Hopefully electricity will go up by then.
You said $500 million a year?
Yes, sir, hopefully. Well, then I got to pay a bigger electric bill.
So he did the math, he said it'd be over $500,000 the first year you'd lose. In back. Not money, in back.
No, taxes.
Oh, taxes?
The INS and 43.
Okay, I got you.
And their value.
So there you go. See, that's why we got guys here.
Well, that's an interesting deal, because
Right.
that's $500,000, that pay for a lot of stuff. And hopefully, I don't expect electricity to go down, it's going to go up in anything, so you know the revenue's going to go up. As electricity goes up, it's going to increase the revenue. So more taxes, could be more.
And in the last year, school construction has increased 18% year over year. So if you waited a year and you lose 500 grand, and to do the same scope, if you were to add 18%, that's nearly over $4 million, so it's going to cost 28, and you'll have $500,000 less. And that's not advocating that you should pass the bond, that's merely trying to give you the same information that the committee and the board worked with to put this out in your hands.
Okay, so let me give you another scenario that happened right here. We went out for a $9 million bond with it in 2007. Got voted down. To do the same thing the next year, it was $10 million. It cost us $1 million. Because we didn't really do our due diligence, we didn't have meetings like this to inform people of how this funding works.
Something I'm getting asked is, when do we, and how long is this bond going to hold us over? When are we expected to ask for another bond increase to?
Ralph, I'd like to say 20 years, but if I give you that number, that's probably going to be on the high side, because at some point, and here's the deal, it depends on growth and housing. If we have a subdivision move in next month, we're behind. If we don't have a subdivision move in until 3 years, we're going to be good for a long time.
There's a lot of new houses being built in this.
Right. Look at Anderson. Anderson is exploding down there.
They're fixing to increase. Okay, my question there is, because a lot of people are asking, well, how many classrooms are we anticipating getting out of this?
Brand new classroom? Are you counting in addition to his?
Addition classrooms. We've got, let's say we've got 25 classrooms now. How many are we going to have when we finish?
Between 6 to 9 in the elementary. And then his band will be expanded to a third larger.
6 to 9 and expansion of
And so you all probably can tell I do this quite a bit. I work with schools, it's all I do. I help with this planning. And I get that same question everywhere. If we call a bond now, what happens if we have more kids move into the district and we need more space later? Every district has the same scenario that they have to consider. But when we're talking about taxable value, if you all explode and a subdivision goes in, with or without this, you're going to probably have to have a bond to accommodate new kids. That's what all districts have to do. But new houses and a new subdivision means an increase in your tax rolls. And what we most commonly see, like in Forney, we were with Forney when it was a tiny little district. 2 years ago, and they're huge now, 6A. 2 years ago, Forney had to call a $623 million bond. This year, they just called a 1.2 or 1.3 billion at the same tax rate. So as new homes move in, it raises the value that 17 cents is hitting. And hopefully, if you explode and there's a lot of new kids, you might be asked to do another bond, but it might be somewhere close to the same 17-cent rate to just tax the extra value that's come in that subdivision to build those kiddos in classrooms.
How many classrooms we're anticipating growth next year? with all the new houses. How many classrooms do you anticipate us needing to lower our student-teacher ratio to get it kind of down?
Well, when we ran all this stuff, we thought 6 to 8 on this side would be good. We're thinking that the high school is good for a while. They've got plenty of room. They've got 3 buildings. They've got the annex, which we call the old school. They've got the high school, and then it's an old junior high building. I don't know, what do y'all call it now? Just junior high building? Old junior. Okay. So they've got plenty of room on their side.
So we think with this economy could pass, we could lower our student count in the classroom.
Well, that's not depend on teachers.
Well,
That, we have room, we just don't know, we can hire more teachers, but then that affects our budget. We don't want to get into the negative side. We've been there, we don't want to do that. So your teachers really determines your class size. The more teachers you have, the less, you can have 10 to 12 in a classroom. The less teachers you have 15 to 18.
what do you think is the best education?
I don't say 1 to 1, but, I can't afford 1 to 1.
I'm just saying, I feel we need.
I think 12 to 16 is optimal.
And we're running 20, 25.
And that depends on the class.
That's what I'm saying.
And I will make, it is against the law to use bond money to pay a teacher's salary.
Correct.
You cannot do that legally, it's against the legislature. Because Austin wants to control how many teachers you hire. And they want, Dan Patrick wanted to make sure he got credit for giving all the teachers a raise a year ago. So regardless, the bond money can only be used to build classrooms. And then that M&O we talked about, that's 80% salaries now, that would have to go to 90% if you wanted to put a new teacher in every classroom. And then you don't have enough money to buy fuel for the buses. So, now, Austin has a real tight grip over the teacher count.
Any other questions? Yeah, yes, ma'am.
So, since one of where I got was telling people that I have 10 new kids on my bus. And being out in Kansas, I can already see the new subdivision coming in, out on 30, possibly TNCA popping up with my path. Was this considered in with those 2 subdivisions as far as the expansion for the school?
Okay, so her question is, what about the houses that are coming in new at King Oaks and on Highway 30? King Oaks is in our taxable district. Highway 30 is not.
It's not, none of those.
That's going to be Anderson.
Okay.
The district makes a crazy little cut right there, and it comes down toward the river, and it goes across Highway 30 down by the river. But what you're talking about, those subdivisions, they're in Anderson, other than King Oaks. King Oaks, all that's in us.
Okay. And the other one, over by TNCA, is that coming up?
That's not in our district either.
Should say.
None of those.
Half of it is.
Half of it is.
Okay.
400 houses in this district.
How many?
400 lots in all this.
See, they're keeping that very quiet.
Well, it's in the infant stages.
Okay.
Does anybody know what those homes are going to sell at?
They're going to be expensive.
You said nice, don't you then?
Yeah.
So,
250, 300?
Oh, for lots of 100,000.
These houses on 30, I sell them for 300.
Who do they sell them to?
Everybody will get
I can just tell you right now,
Everybody will get up.
they're $300,000 to $500,000 home, those are retired people.
so
You got a family in a $300,000 or $500,000 home, good.
We price the home around all of them.
what we I work with folks who do what's called a demographic study, who at some point, if y'all continue growing, the district might have to retain someone to come figure that out. But what we have found over the past 24 months, any home 300,000 or above at best is probably going to have a high schooler or adult-age children. Sometimes they might get as low as junior high kiddos, but those should wash through the high school pretty quickly by the time that subdivision gets built.
One second, clarify. So obviously the district is growing pretty quickly. So are we planning to do anything as far as education-wise in high school? Give the kids more opportunities, open up different electives or
Love
classroom
to.
teachers? What?
Oh yeah, we're expanding that as fast as we can do it, with different electives and opportunities.
But that also comes with teachers, so we're kind of maximized with the number of teachers that we're splitting out to do extra things. And this year especially, we're taking on 6th grade, so that will add to any of the different fluff that we had and optimize all those teachers into different classes as well. We're always all the extra electives that we can get. You know, I believe he even told me, back in the day, he had a similar amount of students, but, a lot less. And we're utilizing more electives, more CTE, more all that.
List your CT classes. What do you have? He's going to give you your CT.
So I can give you the areas, I don't know the specific classes, but we have ag, we have animal science, all your ag mech stuff. We have law enforcement, we've gotten into that. We've got business technology, we've got Miss Inman's economic, what do you call it, that kind of classes. FCCLA classes. I think what else we have. So we've got a lot more, just since I've gotten here, we've added at least 3. So pathways, and those are things that I know that the board goals as well, trying to increase the different exposure of kids that have in CTE.
Is 6th grade going to be up there with 7th and 8th?
Yes, ma'am. So that'll be full junior high on that side.
But they won't be considered junior high.
Yeah, I mean, it'll
They'll be in
be,
that building.
So, they're not. junior.
So, let me just kind of throw this out there, and I've kind of missed this. The gym is a big ticket item. So when we have to build a high school, it would be cheaper to already have the gym built and attached to high school than it would be to go to get a high school and a gym together 20 years from now. Because if you're adding 18% interest every year, I think we actually looked at the number of the high school, it's like 56 million, is that what we came up with that one day? 56 million for a brand new high school. You're talking about stick shop.
I was without the gym.
Yeah, no gym. So that's why we're, no, 18% inflation over, so like in 15 years, if we were to build a new high school, that high school, what we spend today, would cost 56 million in the future. That's why, like gyms, specialized things are more expensive because they have those little nuances in them. Where classrooms are cheap. 4 walls, we're ready to roll. And so that's what makes gyms more expensive, because they're not just that big. So we're trying to divide this out over the years where it's not all at one time. Anything else you want to add?
No, so the topic of growth was a discussion with both the committee and the board. And it's 17 cents and 24 million, and one of the things the committee was charged with was how much of it. So the only way to get at the solar farm is to raise the taxes. It's against the law to raise the tax rate for an individual entity. You have to raise the tax rate for everybody inside the ISD. So how much did the committee feel the community could potentially stomach? He asked about the high school. The committee was charged with, well, maybe we should just prepare for growth now. Maybe we should look at building a high school and a gym. That 17 cents would have been a whole lot more. It would have even been above the legal allowable rate by law. The maximum you could do is 50. And if you just do the math, at 17 cents, a $100,000 home being $5 basically, if you had to triple that, that's 15. But if you start to triple that $300 home, now you're upwards of $80-some a month. And the committee said, we don't feel that we can support that, and if the growth isn't here yet, or if it comes slowly, we have empty classrooms, and we're paying that. We asked our community to pay that. So this, they felt, was a good toe into setting up a good plan for the future. That's why that one slide, they showed the gym over there. Because if you build a gym in the middle of campus, and then you do grow, the committee said, well, then if we have to put a high school somewhere else, everybody's got to walk to the middle of campus for a gym. One idea was to put it across the road potentially, and then if we have to build a new high school, it's right next to it, and we're saving some money down the road. So they're trying to accommodate the growth without breaking the bank.
Okay, so future plan, I'm glad it came up. If we have to build a high school over there, we can move our baseball, softball fields. They just happen to fit. The baseball field fits on the other side of the football field where we have the discus ring. The baseball field will fit in there. And then over down by the little shed, the softball field will fit there. So for future expansion, if we have to build a high school over there, we can move those. We have places for them. We don't have to go buy land.
Heard we have a 5-year strategic plan. Is that true?
Yes, we're working on that stuff, yes. Well, I think it's more of a 10-year plan is what we discussed, not 5 years. 5 years, get this done. That's about, it's going to be a little over 3 years, so that's close enough to 5.
That's what I was gonna ask, how long is this gonna take to be built?
So if the bond
Here's
is,
the timeline.
yeah, if the bond is approved, it usually takes an architect anywhere between 6 and 12 months to design a gym like that. Hopefully, my job would be to push them so that it's sooner rather than later. But 6 to 12 months to just design it. Then it'll take about 2 months to put all the concrete and electric, everything out to bid and award bids. And then to build that gym, you probably give yourselves a year. If the market settles down, we're building a gym right now down near Corpus, and just to get the steel for the gym is a 14-month lead time. So normally it would take about a year to get a gym built. Down there, we've had to push out even further with expectations, because Red Dot, some of these other companies are telling us for large packages like that, they can't even take an order that would be delivered in 2022.
Would you allow a contract to be let like that? I know a lot of housing companies now, and fine print, you don't read real good. You pay if lumber increases in price, you procure that increase. Can you put a turnkey where these contractors can't rate you on?
So that's a fantastic question, and I wish we could. The answer is legally yes. I want you to give me a bid and hold it, right? But if you're wanting to get the best price for any construction done in your district, you want the more people bidding as possible. You want everybody and their mother, brother, sister, uncle, aunt bidding on that job, and then you get to pick the lowest and best one, right? But if you start to put in criteria, I'm gonna make you hold that price for a year, then we've tried it in this market, and then you don't get enough bids, and you gotta go back out. So what we have started recommending the districts do, and that's part of the 24 million. Normally you have a contingency. So if there's a contingency means if I'm building a building and we run into a gas line over there that nobody in town could remember, but it's been there for 60 years, then we have some money to move it around, right? That's a contingency. We have 2 contingencies built in that 24 million for the district. Again, it stays in their account, but it's for those, it's for increases in material cost that we can't forecast because of the market. We've got a little fluff in that 24. And if the project comes in and we don't need the fluff, the district has that money to continue working on drainage or whatever it needs to do. But that way, we're trying to plan for that scenario.
But probably a couple of years for the bigger projects, but what if, I mean, none of them are small, but what about some of the smaller projects, like the expansion of the band hall?
So that's a good point. I would envision, and I can't commit to any of this, but I would envision something like the drainage. If we're doing the new parking lots and the center and the tear down of the transportation, stuff like that can happen sooner rather than later. When it gets to something like the elementary expansion and addition, we're going to have to see what we'll do is if the bond passes and we put out the bid packages, we'll put out, the steel or the concrete for the gym and for the elementary, and then we'll also put out a deal that says, now what if you do both? So it might be that the best use of taxpayer dollars is to package the gym and the elementary together because you get an economy of scale to pour more concrete while the truck's already here, right? However, if we bid it out and that thing isn't exactly true, you may have that elementary done before the gym's ever done because we want to get it done and to you as quickly as possible. But we also wanted to make sure the district has the choice to do that at the most economical rate.
So the renovation on my building, if the bond passes in May, we don't have enough time to get it done for that school year. So 22, 23, it won't happen. It'll be the following summer.
On that, during that time frame that y'all are doing, the construction on the elementary, the whole thing is like kids are in school. What are their plans to, as far as space, is there any space issue? So we have more buildings that are coming in, will that be an issue?
If we can get away with not doing portable buildings, we don't want to do that. That's the worst value for money, but you may have to. But also think of it like this, when we move out of the building, we can still have school because we've got extra space. We've got enough space for elementary, especially when we move the 6th grade over. We've got space. That is a luxury, so now our specialized teachers, they can get up their own classroom.
I'm hoping the renovations in the elementary can be done over a summer. We'll have to wait and see how that's, the guys who are smarter than me schedule that in the office. But the addition on the end of the elementary can be done during the school year without impacting the education of the kiddos in that building. We do it every day. And I believe that it will be a phased project so that you can realize some additional classrooms, and then they will have a wall fencing. We have a very strict policy that these people will not interact with kiddos. They're all fingerprinted, a background check, safety first, or we're off the job. So, but we believe that we can build the extension and the addition during the school year without creating too much of a hassle for the local community. I just think it's probably going to be in conjunction with when they're doing the gym, but can't answer that yet. But we commit to, I don't think we'll need any portables, but I can't guarantee it.
Right.
Yeah, but we're looking at trying to purchase any additional property around the school.
Not as of right now. Mr. was sell something. Sell something cheap. All right, any other questions, guys?
One question, sir. You did a good job with appreciation, like for instance, solar farm, right? As far as who's going to be contributing to this tax. So then you also talked about, like, construction might not start for, a year, 2 years, 3 years, right? So how does that come into play? Are we, even though construction might be delayed as far as planning to do all these things, are we still able to take the best use of the appreciation of tax reform and our current tax and stuff this year or next year before we start to
Right. So I think I know what you're asking, because you want to, can we get them, if the construction's delayed, can we still get the same amount of money?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we pass this in May, they're going to start selling bonds somewhere around November.
August to November.
Okay, so that tax rate will kick in January. So we're still on schedule. So we can go ahead and start the money collection process, or the bond selling process, let's say that, without us being constructed.
Yeah. That money will sit in what's called an INS fund balance and be ready to start paying the contractors. As soon as they can sell it and get the full value from the solar company, I'm sure that their financial advisor, who's one of the most brilliant people I've ever met, I'm sure he would counsel these folks to sell when it's high. But they will also want to sell some of it up front, because the reason construction will take some time is because the architect has to finish the job and we have to order materials. So they'll need some of it sold to start to pay the architect to get them working. With that said, bonds do not have to be sold all at once, and they do not have to be all sold for 30 years. And I don't think there's any buses in this bond, but an example would be at District ABC down the road, if they had a bus included in their bond, that $120,000 could be sold on a 5-year bond, and the rest of it could be sold on 30. And I will also say that the length of term will be determined by the board of how long that mortgage is. The goal, the planning was for worst case scenario, because with the craziness in the world, interest rates have been going up. So the financial advisor planned for a higher interest rate than we hope to see. And if that's the case, the board may be able to sell that bond on a 25-year note instead of 30. But we won't know what that looks like until after the bond is passed.
And we consider the factor is there supposedly is going to be a phase 2 of the solar.
Okay, we can't factor that in until it actually happens. But that's a good point. If you want to tell them, you can tell them.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's going to prove it. It's just a matter of time here. But I'm just wondering if we're going to hold another bond. Do we have to hold another bond to get their money? Or is it all?
It's like a business. If they come online, now they start contributing. But we can't guarantee that.
No.
If another phase of a solar farm comes online, that was your question?
Yes.
So if another phase of a solar farm comes online, your community is going to have another choice, or 3 choices. One will be, do we call another bond to keep the 17 cents the same? As I talked about before, if new houses come in, you can keep the same car payment, trade in your car, basically. You'll have the same, if you want to call another bond because all of a sudden we need a high school and we're able to do that, you can. The other options would be if you call no bond and there's an increase in value, then the board would be able to decide, we'll lower the tax impact of 17 cents, or we'll keep it at 17, but now, instead of paying it off in 25 or 30 years, we're going to pay it off in 18 or 20. I'm making those numbers up, but that you could, as value increases, either the term of the loan or the size of the payment will be able to decrease. If the voters approve an INS tax rate, by law, the only thing the taxes collected on the INS bond side can be used for is to pay a bond payment. So the only thing that 17 cents can be used for is to pay for that 24 million. And the faster that happens, great. Or the worst case scenario planned out over 30 years, great. If the value increases, you have options.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the 17 cents is the cost to pay the full 25 million bond. Is that going to be assessed the first year if you're saying you're not selling full bonds, 25 million up front,
24 million?
or 24 million?
Okay, he's asking, and this is going to be, this is a Lucas question, really.
I think I've asked you.
Okay,
Because normally you match your INS to your bond payment.
right, that's correct.
And so 17 cents is on 24 million, but if we're not going to issue 24 million all at once, are we still assessing 17 cents on the property valuation, building the INS fund up, basically? So not matching the bond payment.
So I'm not going to speak for the board because they'll make that decision when the time comes, which will be long after you all vote, however you vote. Most scenarios I see, they collect the money so that as soon as they can, they're paying. So it's, most school bonds aren't what's called callable for 10 years. So like when we take out a mortgage, if I want to make an extra payment a year to shave 5 years off the end of my note, I can do that. Bonds, when the stock market goes crazy, you have investors who are buying bonds because they know this school district will pay its bills. And so it's safe. It doesn't generate a lot of money, so the interest rate is lower for them, but it's a safe investment of funds. But the only way it's worth the effort of the organizations or individuals who purchase these bonds, the only way it's worth it is if they know they're going to make a little money. So they usually put a 10-year call restriction on the bond. That means for 10 years, you can't make an early payment. But after 10 years of one day, everything they've collected from day one, if they want to, the district can then go ahead and make a giant payment against that interest. And now instead of 25 or 30 years, it lowers. Most districts I have worked with will begin collecting right away because that's the peak value of the solar farm. So if they choose not to collect that 17 cents that first year, then they won't have as much to collect next year. But that's a board decision. I won't speak for y'all.
So we could accumulate a pretty sizable INS fund amount,
Yes.
not matching the
And that's why we have this guy named Lucas Chandler. That's what he does. He tells, he's a financial dude. He will tell us what is the best deal.
And likely if you were to sell the 24 and put it into INS fund balance, you'd be able to, even though the interest rates are low, you would be able to collect interest on that 24 until it's issued. So then that would even lower it by a minute amount, your overall payment.
Second question on that, if we issue the 24 upfront and we're issuing the 17 cents, we have this, most of the loan is based on appreciating assets, rather than, we have an appreciating one. So if you have a depreciating asset and have a warrant, and it's losing value every year, assuming we don't get any growth in this area, is that 17 cents going to be built up to cover earnings?
Great question. Okay, so, great question. The state allows you to do this. It allows you to raise that tax rate, is it 3%? Where you can cover your bond payments.
You can go up to
Yes.
your bond payment without
So let's say we did this, and something really, really bad. We can come back and say, we've got to be able to raise this tax to pay our bills. So the state gives us that option.
Right.
We try not to ever do that.
And I believe, Lucas, the numbers that we used, that he used to forecast can the district afford the 20 million, 24 million at 17 cents? I believe he assumed 0% growth.
Okay, that was my question. Was the growth, so we are covering the depreciation with that 17 cents on all the values?
Your financial advisor and the construction folks who are trying to help present numbers, y'all, we went into this like the sky is falling and the world's on fire, and we are being as conservative as possible, because I will tell you, when we came back with all of the numbers, it was way north of 24. The committee made a long list of stuff that they said you all could do with your district. It was way more than 24. So if that 24, if we have planned properly, like the sky is falling and the sky doesn't fall, you'll be able to make a bigger impact on your district than we're committing to in print. But worst case scenario, we want to be able to deliver the promises that we're making.
Other question, is it just from my understanding, certainly from IS funds, if we build that up, or is there any, does that have any penalties to us in our state funding? Or any of those, if we accumulate this large balance in our IS, that we have to use, we're not issuing bonds?
Okay, so the state will do this for you. They know that you're going to spend that on, so he asked them if you accumulate a huge INS fund, does the state penalize you? Okay, the state's going to make an assumption. If you're selling bonds, that you're going to build something to it. They're not going to hold it against you unless you never do anything with it. And probably if you're sitting there with 10, 15 years, now they may come back.
I was going to say, is there a time?
I've never heard anybody not, when you get bonds, you start building. So that usually stops all that.
It's 10 years. The state will allow you to reapply to spend that fund balance after 10 years, but you have to jump through hoops. Their expectation is that hopefully you started construction within 3, and it needs to be spent in 10. But you will be able to apply back to the state. And there is no penalty by keeping that there for the 10 years, and I will mention, you must be in finance, but if you all look at a set of stairs, just imagine some stairs on the screen, and the highest stair is where the depreciation hasn't started yet on the solar, and the lowest stair is where it's all the way gone. Your financial advisor, and not every one of them in the state do this, but the financial advisor that the district is working with, they're making a bond payment match the highest stair in the first year. By the time they get to the bottom of the stairs with depreciation, the bond payments are this big instead of this big. So to answer your question, when Lucas sells the bonds, he is planning for that first date of sale, even if it's a few months out. That is already in his model for that first date to have the biggest impact and to get it off your books. I think it's something like 5 years in, half the bonds can pay because of the depreciation, something like that. Don't quote me on that, but the highest principal payments begin at the beginning.
So we're matching our funds.
Yes.
Our debt service to that depreciation.
Absolutely. That's what Lucas does.
The other question?
What kind of shape is the school in financially? Do we depend on anything like oil and gas revenue or any other major?
We're in very good shape. Mr. Martindale did a great job with this year. So we're in good shape financially. That's why we're going to be able to build a couple of things out of fund balance, like the transportation building across the road. We're going to take that out of fund balance. So that's one thing. If we decide to take the old gym down, that will come out of fund balance also. So that's not included in the bond. So
Admin moved as well, Jeff.
what's that?
Admin moved.
Yes. And that, yes, that's correct. The admin building moving over there, that's minor there. That's just.
We don't foresee any major changes in our fiscal responsibility by going ahead with anything that could make us, have a shortfall.
No, but I did see it top of $1.02 today.
It's going to go.
$102 a barrel now. So, crazy. All right. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Is the current critical infrastructure able to support the expansion that you're proposing, or is that included in the 24 million, like water, wastewater, electric?
All that's going to be tied in. The only thing that would need water, I think, would be the new gym.
All of that is included in the 24 million.
Yes.
The drainage, water, gas, electric, all the infrastructure needed to power not only your current buildings, but your buildings that are being added.
What about sewer?
Well, okay, so if we put the gym over there, we already have a lift station over there because it runs to the baseball softball field. So it might have to be upgraded. But that's all going to be figured into the cost of that gym. So those are the unknowns that we don't know right now. We're hoping. He said the city sewer might be done. We would love for them to have that done.
Don't think about it.
Well, y'all support Ms. Stover because I know she needs, that's a tough job.
That it is.
All right. Anything else? All right, guys, thank y'all so
Oh, we
much.
got a question?
Someone?
I got a more of a mild question. You're moving the gym across, the Bulldog Lane?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you gonna close that? Because right now, the kids run back and forth, and you're talking about having stuff at night.
I would love to close that road off. I just don't think I have the power to do that.
I realize it's 5 years down the line or whatever you're building. Do you have some kind of safety? Because now everything is just open. I mean, are we still online to get the campus locked down at some point?
Every year we look for upgrades. But what you're talking about, I don't know that we can shut down Bulldog Lane, but one of the options for the gym was to put it across by the sewer plant. Well, now they're crossing 39, so we kind of X'd that real quick. We already don't like going across 244, but it is what it is, and we have to just be very
I
careful.
understand that. They were just telling us at the board meeting that it was a safety feature for when they do little dribblers or whatever it's called.
I think the safety was talking about when we move in the playground to the interior of the campus. I think that was one of the big safety deals.
Oh, okay. Then they're talking in the community, then they're
The
talking.
future growth would allow it, though. Like if you put the baseball field on the other side, or you put the high school on the other side of the baseball field is, you actually move everything over there, and kids aren't crossing the road at all, except for to go to the football field.
So if you built a high school over there, they wouldn't cross any road.
Okay.
And then there's already a gym over here for the junior high.
Yeah,
So this would be that would be the junior high.
that's right.
And they did,
Is the high school cafeteria, is it still being?
I think every building leaves around here.
Not unless it's raining.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's for a long time.
Gym doesn't leak anymore, though, I'll tell you that. So we got that going for us.
Hey, well, guys, we appreciate y'all coming out. Thank you so much. Make sure you take a flyer, and y'all can be kind of our ambassadors. If people have questions, y'all kind of sit through this. We're going to set up some more town hall meetings, and we'll put that out. If y'all help us get the word out, we would definitely appreciate that. Thank y'all for coming.